NASCAR is trying to bring back the Brickyard 400, and Tony Stewart still wants NASCAR back in Eldora. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jet. Welcome back to the episode of Inside the Lines, the second upload of the day. Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon or whenever you're watching this video. If you haven't checked out my last video, click on the card on the top right of your screen. We talked about NASCAR's newest driver to enter the Cup Series, Brody Kostecki from the Supercars division, competing at the Indy Road Course next month, and talking about Martin Truex Jr.'s future in NASCAR. But if you have watched it already, good for you. You're up to date on everything you need to know. So let's jump into it with today's episode. We'll start off, like I said at the beginning of the video, NASCAR at Indianapolis. Now, if you want more of an in-depth look on my thoughts of NASCAR at Indianapolis, again, there'll be another card on the top right of your screen in which I fill you in on my thoughts and opinions on why I believe NASCAR should return to the oval of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And by the looks of it, NASCAR themselves agree. Greg Stucker from Goodyear stated that they will conduct a NASCAR Goodyear tire test at the oval of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on August 14th and 15th. That is the Monday and Tuesday after the race weekend of NASCAR and IndyCar at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. According to Greg Stucker from Goodyear, he says, quote, "We just feel like there's enough discussion around potentially going back to the oval in the future. Let's go ahead and take the opportunity to get on that racetrack in the old configuration with the next-gen car. We haven't run the next-gen car on the oval. We've only run the road course. I hate to bring it up, but the last time we took a new car to Indianapolis, it didn't fare too terribly well from a tire perspective. So we want to stay ahead of that. We want to get a first look at it so that if that decision is made at some point in the future to go back to the oval, then at least we have a good starting point with this car so that we can go from there. We always feel like we need to go back a couple times at Indy and test and get prepared for an oval race if that's going to be the decision. We feel like it's a good opportunity to go ahead and run, gather some data, and see where it stands. We haven't run that oval for a while, so we'll see how that surface has aged over the course of a few years and since we've run there. It just seems like a good time to put a mark in the sand and decide what we would need to do if in fact we do decide to take that step." So again, if you watched that video of why I feel like NASCAR should return to the Brickyard, I stated my reasons. The Indy Road Course, it just feels like another race. It doesn't feel like the Brickyard 400. And I stated in that video that sometimes there's always that feeling of you don't know what you have until it's gone. That's my thoughts with the Brickyard 400. In its final few years, like, it was so cool to see the Brickyard 400 and stock cars compete on it, but it did lose its luster. And then when it was gone, you kind of realize like, ah, man, I understand the Brickyard 400 sucked in its final few years, but man, I still miss it. And let's be honest, I really don't want, I swear, if there was another shit show like what we saw last August, where we saw like 5 wide going to a corner where only really 2 cars could fit, I really want to bring back the oval because I'd rather take the oval than what we saw last year. Just complete chaos and nonsense. I mean, if you ask all the drivers want to go back to the oval. They don't care about the road course. I certainly don't care about the road course compared to the oval. And the Brickyard 400, even though it was still going down in popularity in terms of attendance, it was still one of the highest watched races of the second half. I think the last Brickyard 400 that was run in 2020, I think brought in like, what, 4 or 5 million viewers? That was big, especially for a race that took place at the second half of the season. You don't usually get those types of ratings, at least nowadays for NASCAR, this late into the season. So I know it would be something that NBC, who's more than likely going to be returning to NASCAR in 2025, definitely more than likely NBC would take up that option if NASCAR wanted to return to the oval and bring back the Brickyard 400. And I like the idea that Goodyear wants. They don't want a situation like what we saw in 2008. That killed the Brickyard 400. And I feel like that if NASCAR were to return to the Brickyard, maybe next year, considering that next year would be the 30th anniversary of the first Brickyard 400 back in 1994, there'd be a lot of hype because, I mean, even I don't think it'll be like 2007 hype, like you have 160,000 fans, but maybe 2011 hype. Like I think you would bring in a pretty good crowd, I believe, if NASCAR brought back the Brickyard 400 because it is the next gen car back on the oval for the first time. Nobody knows what it's going to race like. So even if it does well or if it's going to suck, I guarantee you that there are a lot of people out there As much as they may not like the Brickyard 400, they're at the very least curious. How will the next gen car race? And I think we should at the very least try it out. Listen, if it doesn't work, okay, fine, go back on the road course. But to not try it out at least, I think we should do that. So I'm very happy that they're doing this properly by not just announcing, hey, we're racing next year at the Oval. Let's first conduct the tire test, see the adjustments we need to make so that we can be able to produce a good race at the Brickyard, since we haven't seen that outside of 2020. When was the last good Brickyard 400? 2011 maybe? It was a long time. Now, Tony Stewart is a man of many things. We know how great of a champion he is in NASCAR. He's basically the jack of all trades in racing. He is a driver, owner, a car owner, not only in NASCAR, but also in NHRA, and also a track owner with Eldora. Eldora is what we're going to be talking about in today's episode because of the 2024 schedule. Hasn't been released yet, but we do know the history of NASCAR, Tony Stewart, and Eldora. NASCAR held the Truck Series, the Camp World Truck Series at Eldora from 2013 to I believe 2019, and then, or around that era. And then Tony Stewart felt that it was ready, that they were ready. They proved to NASCAR that, hey, look what we did with the trucks. We've proved that we're ready for Xfinity or Cup Series spot. NASCAR said no, so Tony Stewart said, okay, and they canceled, or they ended the contract. So it was Stewart that made the decision that stopped NASCAR from racing at Eldora, and they decided to take NASCAR to Knoxville, which still was not a good, it was not good. If you saw the two Knoxville races, wasn't that good. With the potential possibility that the Bristol Dirt Race will not return in 2024, Tony Stewart has stated that he wants NASCAR to return to Eldora. I have been from day one. We were offered the chance to keep the Truck Series race, and I turned it down because I felt we worked hard, went through all the learning curves and growing pains in having a dirt race. I understand the reasons we were told why they went to Bristol with it, but my feelings are that we would go above and beyond anything we're already doing now. Do more than we already do to make sure it would be a huge event. But that's in NASCAR's hands at this point. But yes, we would absolutely be interested in that conversation. Yes. Now, Tony Stewart and Eldora, they're not foreign to hosting big events. Earlier last week, or I should say this past Thursday, was the biggest dirt race in terms of prize money ever. The Eldora Million, a sprint car race with $1 million going to the winner, made it a huge event. And I think it's a perfect decision. I think it's a perfect move. Again, I've always had this feeling with NASCAR that if you want to go to a dirt track, go to a proper dirt track, a track that is built for this stuff. Eldora is the perfect one. First of all, with a guy like Stewart as your track promoter, you know damn well he is going to promote the hell out of NASCAR at Eldora, especially the Cup Series. You know he's going to make sure that this event is as big as possible. Second of all, Eldora is just a fun track. I mean, we saw the Truck Series race there, and almost every year it was a banger race. And then we saw SRX race there, another banger race. I haven't been able to watch the sprint cars race in there, but from what I've seen, like certain highlights, it's a perfect track, I think, for NASCAR to host a dirt race. Why wouldn't you go to Eldora? I mean, you could argue that Eldora Speedway is the most famous dirt track in America. Maybe outside of Knoxville, or, the track that hosts, the Chili Bowl. Maybe, it's in that discussion at the very least. Why not go to Eldora? Now, of course, then the thing that would come up is, well, what would happen to the Bristol Dirt Race? I think one of two options. Number one, it just goes away, maybe gives it later down the line to Nashville Fairgrounds, or they just straight up cancel it. They just don't have a Bristol Spring Race and only just have one race that will take place during the fall race, the Bristol Night Race. But I think the Bristol Dirt Race served its time. The 2 years, the first year, a huge uptick in attendance. Second year, still more people showed up to this year's race than the few years of the spring race before it went to dirt in 2019 on back. So yes, it improved, but it was like, I don't know. To me, it was like, yes, it was nice, but we don't need it anymore. It's not like Chicago where it's like, we need to have a street race, or I want this race to come back next year. With the Bristol Dirt, it's like, if it comes back, okay, but I wouldn't mind if it didn't come back. So those are my thoughts on it. I would love to see Eldora be a part of the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Again, You know, I'm sure NASCAR wants to have the most diverse schedule in sports, in racing, I should say. If you want to have a dirt race, Eldora is right there waiting for you. I'm just saying. But those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on my two stories? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, my name is JettMDK. Thanks for watching.